our chat room. Coach Wooden, Keys to Life Award winner Scott Drew will be honored at Houston in the Final Four. Of course, the games are tomorrow night, but there's a lot more going on announced by Athletes in Action. Eric Nelson, Vice President, Catalytic Ministries for Athletes in Action, joins us with Paul Craig, David Smoke on 365 Sports. Thank you very much, Eric. Can you kind of give us some background on the award? Everyone knows John Wooden, UCLA, and much more, what he stood for, but a little background on the award.
Well, I hope everybody knows John Wooden, right? I mean, we're finding more and more people don't know who he is. We have to remind them of his greatness. But thanks for having us on, and for just I think it's great that Scott's getting honored this way. It's the 25th year of this particular award. It's the John Wooden Keys to Life Award, and we've honored folks that have demonstrated a life within their profession of coaching or playing beyond, and in their community of character, leadership, faith, very integrated into their life, and have done it at a very high level. And so we're really pleased and honored that Scott will be the recipient this year.
What about Coach Drew kind of lines up with Coach Wooden's mission and your mission and all that, that kind of led to him being the winner this year?
Well, the first thing that would come to mind as you ask that is just there's a principled-based approach to how they go about leading their programs. And from all that we know of Coach Wooden, and had a chance to spend time with Coach Wooden in the early 2000s before he passed, and it was really true. Who he was based on his principles, his pyramid of success, and the things that he wrote about and lived by and coached by. And Coach Drew is really the same. I think people are getting to know many of the principles about God first and others and then yourself. And so the selflessness of his teams and the joy that they play by have really been evidenced. One thing for coaches to say those things and put them in their locker room to talk about, it's another where they really lived out in their program. That's when you can really tell that it's true and it's a part of who they are and how they lead.
Eric, there's a lot of big names and interesting names that have won this award, but one in particular, the same last name as Scott Drew, his father Homer. How cool is it that Scott's now sharing an honor that his father received a few years back?
Oh, it's actually really fun. Years ago, I stayed in Homer's house, had a chance to because we had a training camp with Athletes in Action there, and I found out, man, this guy is really competitive. He plays ping pong like nobody's business. And I found out, and we learned more about his family, and they all really have the same values, and it's such an impacting family through the sport of basketball, and they really have done so much for the game. They've done a lot for Athletes in Action over the years, and we're grateful for that. And it's the first time it's ever happened in 25 years of this particular award. We've had a father and son win it, so it's great. We'll have a lot of folks there in the room. Jerry Colangelo and Clark Kellogg will be there. Of course, one of Baylor's former Board of Regents, or current, Jeff Reeder, is going to be helping do the welcome, and it's going to be a great morning tomorrow.
I just saw this, that you're a Texas Tech grad?
Yes.
They just hired former Tech and also Scott Drew assistant in Grant McCaslin, who just won the NIT last night. Your thoughts about that?
Oh man, he's a good one. I mean, he comes from a good tree, right? There's a a principle-based approach, and he's just really solid as a person. He's solid in his faith. He's a good teacher, and he'll do really well. He'll do really well. I mean, you look at the conference now, and now you've got a couple former Baylor guys there, and it's really says a lot about who Scott is for sure.
So Eric Nelson, Vice President, Catalytic Ministries, a part of Athletes in Action. I remember the first time I ever, and this might have been, I'm 63, so I don't know the exact time, but when I first heard of Athletes in Action, I understood the mission statement, so to speak, but the basketball team traveled and played like everywhere. How much does that still go on today?
Oh, that's a great question. And it actually got started 56 years ago with one of the staff, the new staff of AIA, that went to a convention like we're experiencing here in Houston. And he walked into a coach's reception. He said, "Hey, anybody want to play some exhibition games?" And one guy that probably had a few too many drinks said, "Hey, we'll play." And before you know it, they had a 26 game schedule and didn't have a team. And so they had to assemble a team and said, we're gonna travel and play and share the gospel, and soon became known as the best amateur team in the world, and actually played the Russian national team. So currently we've got teams that do travel internationally and compete, and because the NCAA actually took those exhibition games away from non-collegiate teams in 2004, we've had to reinvent in different ways. We don't get to play those games anymore, which we'd like to, and actually coaches like them. But there was a number of circumstances that led to not letting non-collegiate teams play. So we still take teams overseas. We've actually had a lot of Baylor guys travel with us over the years and have some life-changing experiences.
That's awesome.
Eric, what would be there's a lot of changes going on in the NCAA right now. What was true in 2004 is clearly not true now for a lot of things. Is there a process for maybe getting that back for you guys?
It's a great question. We've talked about it even this year. I think because of all the changes, it's probably a good time to revisit it. There would have to be some loosening up of what happens in the preseason games, allowing for some non-collegiate teams to play. But I think everything seems to be pretty open right now, especially with some of the changes and the way college is and sports is. And I mean, honestly, with the transfer portal the way it is, coaches are needing to really help to assemble their teams and develop good chemistry and culture a little differently and quicker. So it's changed the availability of players because they want them around and need them around to do that. So it's a different world we're in right now, for sure.
Yeah, and you see schools that go over, like Baylor's been, I think, to Italy. They have been to Canada. They've played in some of these exhibitions during the summer, which is great because they get a chance to play. So maybe that can be reestablished, like Paul mentioned, and like you mentioned, it's not quite as the same. When was the first time you ever met Scott Drew?
It was my first year on staff with AIA in 2004, 3 and 4, and really met the Drew family got to know them over the next couple of years. We have some staff that have been with us for 50 years and took the entire Drew family overseas on some Athletes in Action trips as players and homework coached. And so Bryce, there's a couple of staff on a couple of guys on his staff that have actually were with us on those tours. So a lot of history with the Drew family going overseas with us and coaching. But I met Scott right as he took over at Baylor.
And you know how he had a dream then, and coaches say a lot, but everyone knows the comments about wanting to compete for a national championship. What did it mean? And you have other coaches and players you've honored, but what did it mean to you, knowing the family the way you do, when they were able to beat Gonzaga and win the national title a couple of years ago, based on when you first met him after he took the job?
There are very few people that come in with a plan and stay the course with the kind of optimism that Scott did. Well, and it's really who their family is too. But I would attribute, and for the administration to say we are in this for the long haul. I mean, it says a lot about them. It says a lot about Scott, because in this microwave culture of college basketball, we want results really fast right now. For him to stay the course on who he was and the university to stick with the plan, you just don't see it very often anymore. So I think everybody probably enjoyed just watching the journey and being part of it, and just seeing the growth year by year, and to a place where they had all the elements and the toughness to win, to do what you got to do to win a national championship, and just being the cohesive unit they were. It was remarkable, honestly, remarkable.
So is the breakfast or the award ceremony tomorrow, or has it already been done today with everyone converging on Houston?
There will be about 1,200 people at the Hilton Americas tomorrow morning for the event. It's at 8 a.m. We'll have a number of basketball people doing other interviews. It's part of a larger program, but the keynote piece of it is the award given at the end. So Drew family will be involved, and Scott will be interviewed by Sage Steele and Fran Fascilla around the award. So
be awesome.
Looking forward to a great morning.
If somebody wants to be a part or wants to know more about Athletes in Action, what would you suggest?
You can go to athletesinaction.org, and there are some inquiry pages there you can look into, or they can feel free to email me or one of our staff, which are all on the website. But feel free to just reach out if you want to know how to serve or be a part, volunteer, staff, go overseas, participate on mission, help with the Final Four, whatever. We could always use the help.
Eric, thank you very much for coming on, talking with us about Coach Drew, the honor. You mentioned last question, you knew John Wooden pretty well. Nobody will ever have that kind of run again, will they, when in men's basketball?
Yeah, I don't think people would, again, the circumstances of how that happened probably will never happen again. And there's so many other things pulling at programs, and I don't think players don't stick with it. And he had players that stayed, and it's just so hard to do that again. And you see it this year, right? There's 4 teams that you never would have picked that are going to be here, that are here playing. And so that's what makes that kind of thing so difficult. Probably never see it again. I wouldn't think so.
Eric, thank you so much for what you're doing and what you represent. Eric Nelson with us, Vice President, Catalytic Ministries for the Athletes in Action. Thanks to Matt Roberts for helping put that together. Craig, you mentioned